that vein, I would like to add my voice to what Markian said about the leadership of Andrew Robinson, the ambassador at that time. He was also the ambassador in the 2002 election. And I would like to ask everyone in this room to join my personal campaign. I want to see Andrew Robinson as the head of the OSCE mission to for the election observation mission in 2012. I discussed this with Mr. Robinson yesterday. He has an unbelievable experience. As far as I'm concerned, he was the most important Canadian citizen in that 2004 election. More important than Boris, the former MP. More important than our Prime Minister. More important than John Turner. More important than myself. And my question is not about that. My question is to the panel about the new leadership in Ukraine. And specifically, I want to ask, I think I'll ask Lange, and I'll ask her about, I was just in Ukraine and I saw a presentation at the Farmers Congress by Natalia Korolevska, a new and up-and-coming politician. I saw the big boards all over Ukraine.
Answer your question.
Yes, I want to ask the question is Natalia Korolevska for real? Is she indeed the second in command to Yulia, or is she, as a lot of people in Ukraine say, an agent of Yanukovych to destroy Yulia and Yulia? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. My feeling is, and not only my feeling, but an information which I have, that Natalia Korolevska is more, as you put it, as agent of Yanukovych than a real supporter of Yulia, a real opposition leader. Also, as a former journalist, I would like to mention that Natalia Korolevska is a person, is a politician who actually bribes journalists who pay money for news coverage on TV, on websites. And I think that is not the way how modern opposition politicians should act.
Thank you very much.
Member of the steering committee. Pretty quick questions to Mr. Lange and Judge Futey. IRI and NDI had some time ago indicated that they were not going to participate in an election law reform discussions. That their concern was that they were being used as window dressing and legitimization of that process. We heard that IRI and NDI are very interested in the observer mission. Have they returned to the election law consultation process? The second question has to do with Markian Shwec concerning the observer mission from Canada. What are the prospects for having long-term and medium-term observers, and the effect that a very large observer mission would have on civil society, especially during the campaign process, in the event that the results of the elections have to be confronted in a demonstrable way. And finally, Russia is going to be actively engaged in the election process in the media and so forth. In the past, I worked on a program in the United States where a grant was given to provide public service announcements to encourage young people to vote. We participated in the anticipation that young people will be voting Democratic. Are there any activities looking for grants to engage NGOs in Ukraine to do that type of public service announcement program? Thank you.
Thank you. You've over-fulfilled your quota of questions. Judge Futey?
Well, as far as the question concerning IRI, yes, IRI withdrew after NDI also withdrew from the President's working group at that time because of lack of transparency, because of the problems that exist, as I mentioned before. Some experts are called in to assist in the law, but then their opinions are not counted. And what happens when the draft is presented, their names are included. That means that they anticipated, and they're in favor of it, so they did not want to be a part of that. Now, are they back? I really don't know about, maybe you'll know about NDI, but I know personally that IRI is back. They are training some poll workers. As a matter of fact, this weekend they're going to Kyiv, and I know that because I am traveling to Ukraine on Saturday, and my driver is also the driver for IRI, and he sent me a note that he cannot pick me up because he's going to be with IRI in Kyiv. So they're involved. Yes, basically in training poll workers and also party members concerning the election law.
Mr. Lange?
I mean, just because IRI and the others withdrew from this president's working group, it doesn't mean that they are not dealing with electoral law anymore. But like us and many others, they had the feeling that they want to not take part in an imitation of democratic procedures. And I think it was the right move not to legitimize this imitation of a working group. What they are, I think, doing now, together with us and with others, is to set up effective procedures for observation of the elections under the new conditions and taking into account the experience that we all made with the local elections in 2010 that were not free and not fair. There are some out-of-term local elections in Ukraine happening now, and that's where, for the first time, this consortium of observer organizations is trying to work out methods and structures and to train people to observe the elections. There is an election in Kyiv, not far from Kyiv, which is significant because there is, as far as I'm informed, for the first time a unified candidate from the opposition running, and there are some other minor elections where we are trying to try out and to work on our mechanisms for election observation. Regarding the electoral law, the law is passed. There are no discussions about this anymore. There are rumors about possible changes in the law, but I think the discussion will start as soon as the rabbit is out of the hat and we know what those changes will be. I am afraid that it will be a last-minute change in the electoral law, like we have seen before, because there might be local elections in Kyiv before, or at least mayor elections in Kyiv before, and only after that, I think, the party of the regions will deal with the parliamentary election.
Let me just add a little bit to that because I mentioned IFES, the International Foundation for Election Systems. They have been working quite well diligently. As a matter of fact, they translated the law into English and is being used by others all over the world in the English language, kind of to get to know what exactly is in that law. That's very important. IFES is there, and they are under the auspices of USAID. But one thing also that is important, I think, for all the observing groups is that the present law allows two or more international observer groups wishing to coordinate their activities, to unite and work together. And all they have to do is just inform the Central Election Commission about their intent. They don't have to do anything else to register or anything, but to do that notification that they can work together, and that's very important.
Mr. Shwec? Yeah. Two questions. So the first one is, can we organize short, long, and medium-term observers? The absolute answer is yes. We have people who are extremely interested in going to Ukraine again. We have people who have not given up on the prospect of free and fair elections in Ukraine. And if you just look at the enthusiasm in the room and the number of young people here, we have some veterans and we have new people who will go, I'm absolutely sure. For your second question, with respect to the reaction and what to do and so forth, the answer is our role is to observe the elections, to provide information, determine whether they were free and fair, and it's up to the Ukrainians, the parties, the street people, the NGOs, or whoever else in Ukraine to make their own next steps based on the information that comes from observers.
This will be the last question. Anders Aslan.
Thank you. Question for Nico and for Alyona also. Looking upon President Yanukovych behavior now. It's striking on the one hand that it could appear as what the voters think. On the other hand, he has now taken personal control with his loyalists over all the power organs. That does not look like an electoral strategy or something else. Do you think that there is a danger, possibility of the declaration of state of emergency or a cancellation of the elections altogether? Thank you.
Mr. Lange.
It's difficult to say at this point because it's very difficult to judge how high the mobilization of the Ukrainian voters can be. My impression is at the moment the mobilization is not very high. I mentioned already that the opposition cannot gain ground even if the party in power is losing support. This is of course in many aspects a bad development because low turnout will be in favor of the party of the regions, and it will make it also easier to manipulate the elections. Also, low turnout would suggest that there will not be any actions that would lead to the scenario that you just described. My impression is that if there will be any kind of public outbreaks or protests, to be very honest with you, I cannot see them in favor of the opposition. I imagine them talking to people in Ukraine more as a movement against all politicians and against Ukrainian politics in general. Whether will this lead to actions by the police or not, it's very difficult to judge for me. But what is clear is that Yanukovych and his family and a very close circle is gaining more and more influence. It's significant that if you are talking to ministers in Ukraine, you get the impression they have no influence on political decisions whatsoever. This would support something to the account of what you just said, that the one and only priority is to gain the grip on power for this small circle of people at any cost.
And would any of the panelists like to have 30 seconds for wind-up remarks?
I think the problem is that not only the Ukrainian government is not ready for any changes in the countries, but Ukrainian society is also not ready for any changes in the country. Ukrainian opposition is not ready for changes because it failed to develop clear messages, clear program, clear plan of action. The good news that, as I already pointed out in Canadian Parliament, maybe 90% of Ukrainian population today is latent opposition to current government. Some of them are in intellectual opposition, some of them are in moral opposition, some of them are in social opposition. So the main problem today is how to develop very clear and very strong message in order to unite all of those groups.
Okay. Well, all right. The issue is what will happen to Ukraine after the election. And we always are talking about what this government is doing to Ukraine. Well, let's ask ourselves a question: what the opposition will do in order to gain back the strength that it had once before, however, was not able to use it effectively in order to make Ukraine more democratic, but turn the government back to the present people.
it's important, in my view, for the opposition to forget their personal motives, their personal convictions, but think as a national unit, as those that will revive what all of us expect Ukraine to be, a democratic country based on the rule of law. Enough time has passed by. They have had the experience. We have such high hopes during the Orange Revolution. However, what followed is a big disappointment. So let's get back to the drawing board. Let the opposition be honest one with the other and form a unity ticket that really will win this election, and they can move the country forward.
Okay, Shwec, you have the last word.
I address my comments to those who are here from Ukraine, in particular those who have been impressed with over a number of years, and those who spoke here, Mr. Harasymiw, Mr. Navalaichенko, Mr. Hetmanchuk, Mr. Hetmanchuk. We need to engage local NGO observers in Ukraine. We need to engage local party observers. They are often absent. Make sure that you in Ukraine have real party observers in each poll, not someone simply assigned to this role a week or two before the election who can be bought off very easily. They have no ideological commitment. We are only as good Western observers as the information that people bring to our attention. If everyone is bought off in a poll and everyone has agreed to cheat, we cannot do anything. So I appeal to everybody who wants free elections in Ukraine, do make sure there are real observers available.
It